I'm here working with the National Park Service in Canyonlands for the Multi-Spectral Imaging Project. This project started about 25 years ago when I was photographing some of the pictograph panels in Canyonlands on 35mm film. After I scanned those images, I realized that the image editing tools like Adobe Photoshop could detect pigment particles the eye couldn't see. So my intent was originally to restore those electronically by using higher resolution digital images. But when I worked with the Cultural Resources Manager at Canyonlands, we realized that when you compared the two images 25 years apart, there was a significant amount of damage, environmental damage, that had happened to the panel in between. We also found that the National Park Service did not have a good photographic record of the panels in Canyonlands. So that started off this multi-spectral imaging project to create a baseline survey of all the pictograph panels in Canyonlands National Park, shooting them in infrared as well as visible with high-resolution digital cameras, and then also shooting them with black and white film as archival backup so that this record will last at least 150 years. This panel has been here for a minimum of 700 to over 2,000 years and was basically untouched until 1980, when one or more vandals using wire brushes and bleach obliterated many of the figures. What we see in visible light is only a fraction of what was there prior to the vandalism, but what we see in infrared shows that the images in fact are still there, because we can see through the vandalized portions and record what was originally beneath there. We can't record it in color because at infrared wavelengths color does not apply. But what we see is a black and white image of the elements in the panel jumping out. Now there's a very interesting panel with two horned elements up there that if you look at it today, you cannot see that one overlies the other. But in infrared, you can tell very well that the one to the right overlies the one to the left. They are overpainted. The two shield figures up there that have been obliterated cover multiple layers of pigment. There are at least 3 and possibly 4 layers of imagery beneath that original shield. The first shots I'll make are in high resolution visible light using a 21 megapixel camera. And these are the baseline images that we will use to add the infrared images to on the top of it. All right, the first filter I use is an infrared filter that allows wavelengths greater than 715 nanometers to pass. And then I reshoot this same scene with multiple different filters. And then what we do is we take the visible light image and the infrared images and stack them one on top of the other so you can turn one off and the other one on and see the difference in the changes at various wavelengths. As we stand up here, it's hard not to imagine from this vantage point how the original artist viewed this scene that have spread out below us. As I photograph more and more of these panels, I realize that the original artisans who created these artworks up to 2,000 or more years ago had the same aesthetic sense for grand scenery and beautiful country as that we do today. As we conduct this project, we're finding these panels are much more complex than any of us ever imagined. There was quite an amount of pre-production work. The cliff faces were sanded quite often. A light base coating of clay was laid down, and then the images were painted over them. And following that, many of them have additional work, what we would call post-production. After the image was made, they were incised with geometric designs and other imagery. So they took weeks to build these things. This was not the act of some tagger with a spray can of paint and a few minutes of work. They spent weeks on these projects.